Hi, and before we get to today's episode, we have a quick word from our sponsor. Tired of drinking out of a boring tumbler? Want to make your morning coffee cup one of a kind? Expand with Tipsy Tumblers. You can special order cups, shot glasses, bookmarks, rolling trays for your cigarettes. So you can get one with a picture of a special someone or one with Spider-Man. The options are endless. You can upload your own pictures or pick from her selection of design. With Valentine's Day coming up, this could be a great gift for that special someone, or even just for yourself. Hey, you can use the code GAMES2023 at checkout to save 10%. You go to angeltipsytumblers.myshopify.com. There will also be a link in the show notes. Now on to our episode today.
Mike, turn your games down.
Hi, we're from another TV episode of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, and who's our rebel with me tonight?
I am Peter, never more than 12, Bingham-Pankratz, author of The Fifth Civilization.
And this is Kerry Chandler, Carusetta on Twitch. I didn't think of a funny thing to say this time.
I didn't either.
I was all set with one, and then no one else did it, so that's all right.
That was a good one, though.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
So we are here to talk about the show that well, when you're hearing this, it will probably be 2023, because I don't think this will come out in December. We are here to talk about Star Wars Andor, the Season 1 show that came out in 2021, late 2021. Started in September 21st and ran for a little while. And it's still, and I think we're getting a Season 2 next year, or the year after, or some point we're getting a Season 2.
I just read, it looks like Season 2 will be filming through summer of 2023, so maybe the end of 2023. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm betting we get it next fall. Same as, well, I don't know, maybe not. But I'm glad there's going to be a second season. Yeah.
Oh yes, I just read it. 5 minutes ago. I was reading it, so it's coming.
But it's all we're getting is a second. Which from what I understand, we're getting a second season and then it's done.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
I mean, spoiler: this is the same character from Rogue One, and let's just say things don't end very well for him in Rogue One. So.
I think they end as well as they were supposed to.
Yeah, but I mean, he ain't coming back.
Yeah.
He ain't going to be showing up anything else ever again after this.
It's, right. His story is over with. But in another sense, his story has just begun.
Yeah. So this takes place, I do want to say what our excitement was for this show. Before the show came out, I had no interest, did not give a shit, was like, okay, you're making a show about this? Why?
Same.
Right.
I was like not interested at all, and then the poster, I think a poster for it tricked me into thinking that Alan Tudyk's B2SO was going to be in it.
Oh.
And I was like, all right, I'm going to watch it because now I remembered how much I liked the charisma between those two characters in Rogue One, which Rogue One I love. It's my fourth favorite Star Wars movie, so. I was jazzed for it, but I am glad they tricked me because are we going to give impressions now?
Yeah, we can give it first. Yeah, I don't care.
I fucking loved this show so much. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It's really good. I put it neck and neck with Mandalorian season 1. Maybe a little behind Mandalorian season 1. Maybe a little ahead of Mandalorian season 2.
Okay.
Light years ahead of Book of Boba Fett or Obi-Wan, for sure.
For Book of Boba Fett, that's not saying much, so.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree. My opinion will probably always change, but I think this is definitely a more consistent show than The Mandalorian. I think the highs, are very high, and they stay high throughout. It's not maybe as rewatchable in terms of adventure as Mandalorian, but yeah, like Kerry said, I loved it. I thought there's so much good stuff in here that we've been waiting for, and I was happy that my expectations were subverted because I was not looking forward to it.
And is this the only Star Wars thing without a lightsaber or the Force at any point?
Yes.
Because that's what we thought we were getting with Mandalorian. We thought, okay, yeah, no lightsabers, no Force, and then he's got his little Force baby, which is fine, is great, is wonderful. We love Grogu, and I definitely squealed when Luke Skywalker came in at the end of season 2, but at the same time when the wash of that wore off, I was like, but can we please get away from the freaking Jedi and the Skywalkers and all this, all Solos, all these people? And then here we are, there's an Easter egg in the background here or there, and otherwise this is just like all new characters or a couple of returning characters that aren't part of that. I love it. I love it. It's what I've been wanting Star Wars to do for years. So
Well, you got your wish.
I agree. I'm amazed that they greenlit this and agreed to it, because I thought we'd never get like a serious show of just, of people talking, which is basically what it was.
Oh, so much just good talking.
Yeah, and I never thought it would happen because they would want to put it. And so far with season 1, fingers crossed that no lightsaber to be found, no Jedi. The word Jedi's not mentioned. Darth Vader does not show up.
Yeah, the closest thing is in Luthen's shop. You see a helmet in the background that looks kind of like Darth Vader's helmet, and according to the internet, that is the Star Killers thing from Force Unleashed.
Oh,
that's
okay.
I'll know.
That's what the internet says. But that's
not. But I mean,
that's fine.
I mean, there is a comment with one of the characters, the bracelet, or not the bracelet, the kyber crystal that the main. God, what the hell is it? Lucian?
Yeah, Luthen gives it to Andor as like his down payment for the.
Yeah,
the
but that pendant that he's wearing, he makes a comment about the Rakatan or something like that. I forget how you pronounce it, which are from KOTOR. So it's like,
right.
Yeah, it's like little things like that. But there's no lightsabers. There's no Force. Force users. I love it.
I didn't think I would like that, but I did.
Yeah, there's no, Force cameo from like Dr. Evazan or Ponda Baba or anything, or which I was worried that they would run it, they would run into Greedo or something. But there's nothing.
That's exactly what I was worried. I was worried that they were going to run into what's his name, the guys that they run into in Rogue One that are from A New Hope.
Oh yeah, Ponda Baba
and
Dr. Ev.
I forgot they're in that. I haven't seen Rogue One in a while.
Yeah, that's one of those, Rogue One is it's a movie of great potential, but it got screwed up in the editing process because, they changed directors halfway through. And you can tell it's like, here's the really good movie, and then here's all the studio notes that are dragging it down a little bit. And that's one of those where it felt like they're like, yeah, but we need something, to tie to the other movies. And there's none of that in this until, there is one post-credit sequence. But other than that, I love it.
I didn't watch any post-credit sequence, so we'll have to talk about that in the end.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that at the end, yeah.
So the person who kind of was a showrunner was Tony Gilroy, who wrote Rogue One, but he's kind of known for serious movies. But they're very good. He's known for like he directed the Bourne Identity movies and the movie Nightcrawler, Michael Clayton.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
So he's like a big action thriller director.
But also Nightcrawler is like a really interesting one. That's a really good movie, and it's like a real tense, slow burn of a movie. I feel like this show is a tense, slow burn of a show. Yeah.
I have a major issue with that movie. Was Nightcrawler. There's no blue man. No blue man. I can't do it.
Yes.
I saw that movie in theaters.
You're watching 2 hours and be like, when does he show up?
I saw it in theaters on Thanksgiving Day, on a very depressing Thanksgiving. And I went and saw that movie.
I'm embarrassed how long it took me to get that joke.
But yes, I remember I'm like, hey, Nightcrawler, okay. I'm like, wait a second. I mean, I knew it before I saw the movie. I'm like, there's
on an hour in, you're like, there's a lot of police chases going on in this movie. Anyway,
he can solve this just by teleporting. What's he doing?
But okay, that's cool that he has.
What I'm trying to say is,
keep going.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is Tony Gilroy is not a Star Wars person, and I think nor is he a Star Wars fan. So for some reason, and not a fan in the sense of Rian Johnson or Ron Howard, Abrams.
And that's one of the best things about Mandalorian is they have all these guest directors who are not tied to Star Wars necessarily, and the best episodes are the ones by people who have no connection to Star Wars. Like the best episode of season 1 of Mandalorian is Bryce Dallas Howard.
Okay,
yeah,
she did the one that's a remake of Seven Samurai, and it's or not Seven, Seven Samurai. But anyway, that's cool, Tony Gilroy. I didn't even know that, but you say that, and I'm like, I can feel. I'm like thinking of Bourne Identity, and I'm thinking of Nightcrawler, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I can feel that.
Right.
But that definitely, I can feel it too now that you mention it. Because this show, I mean, I was surprised. Early on, it doesn't take long. I think did they release 2 episodes at once to start the show, like episode 1 and 2?
I think 3.
They did 3 at once. Yeah.
Okay, I like that Disney Plus is sticking with the old series idea of that we release. We only release so many episodes at a time, and that we kind of piggyback it here and there. I do like that they do.
Yeah, it's good for them, economically, but also I think it actually is good for us, even if we don't. It's forcing us to eat our vegetables, so to speak.
It also builds buzz, and that's why a lot of all the shows that people talk about or have talked about usually are shows that do that instead of releasing it all at once, because you have the collective wonder about what's going to happen next week, and then everybody talks about the same moment on the same day. So
I think you need that.
Yeah.
One thing I want to touch on right away is one of the issues that a lot of people had with this show is that the heroes aren't really heroes. Like, I mean, Axis or Luthen is not a good person. Andor's not a good person. Like, none of these people are good people in the rebellion, but I really think that's how rebellions are in history.
Right.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I don't know about like good. It's just they're not pure. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Like Andor does, do the right thing. He does eventually. It's like he just has to grow into that, I think. And I think that's a big part of what Rogue One is about, is he's starting off Rogue One. His arc in Rogue One is that he's kind of like his soul is crushed by the dark stuff that he's had to do for Luthen, like the dark stuff he's had to do for the rebellion. And then here comes Jyn Erso with all this like hope and optimism, and she convinces him that, you can be good, you can do good, and you don't have to like give up who you don't have to give up your humanity. And that's his arc in Rogue One. But I feel like he has a bit of that arc in this series and this one is more about him learning how to have something to fight for. And in Rogue One, it's about him learning how to be a person and have hope.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
But I think there's similar arcs, and so I don't think he's necessarily bad person per se. Like I was listening to like a podcast about it at one point, and someone was saying, well, he murders those 2 guards in the first episode. And I'm like, I mean, murder is I mean, I guess.
Yeah, right? I would say he murders.
He murders them. It wasn't planned. It just wasn't.
Well, it's
they
also
asked for it.
It's also not unprovoked. Like,
right.
Like,
they're not good people. I mean, they're bad guys he murders in the sense of,
they're bad guys that are going to get him put in. Yeah, they're going to rob him and put him in jail.
Right.
And he's like, I'm not going to let that happen. And so he's willing to kill rather than go to jail unjustly, or not even unjustly, but be robbed and go to jail. I don't know if it's unjustly, because he probably is breaking the law there. I think he is. He's there to steal something.
No, he was there for
trying to find his sister.
I feel like that's where he got the nav unit that he steals. Now, I don't know if he went there for. Oh no, you're right. He went there looking for his sister. He steals the corporation ship that has the nav unit, I guess.
Oh, that's how he gets it?
No, that doesn't make any sense. No, because the nav unit, Luthen was looking for the nav unit in the first place. I think Bix had the nav unit, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how he got the nav unit.
They don't really say. I mean, they just kind of point out that like he is a thief in general. Like he was.
Yeah, he survives by being a thief, but he's stealing from a fascist dictatorship. So it's like it is gray areas, but I think he's on the light side of gray is all.
Yeah, I mean, when we first see him in. Rogue One, going back to that, I mean, when we first introduced him, within 5 minutes, he kills someone. He kills
a good guy.
He kills an informant. Yeah, and I was shocked by that when I first saw it, but I guess he was like, in terms of like, the guy
we've got to get out of
injured?
Here. Yeah, and he was like, he knew the guy was going to talk, and he's like, it's spycraft stuff. It is, but it's definitely not the kind of honestly childish black and white of Star Wars. Star Wars is, I mean, the Force itself is like we love it. We're Star Wars nerds, but it is a very like child's idea of morality, that there's like literal magical good and evil almost, like in the world, and that you can go to one, and there's redemption and so on, but still this is like not like that. It is very much, it is, Mission Impossible kind of situation where it's, the guys in Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, he's doing good things for the right reasons, but he's also absolutely willing to kill and, silence people and stuff. So, it's that kind of thing. I love it. It's what Star Wars needed. It needed its adult drama. Though I'll tell you, I watched this with my 10-year-old. He was riveted. He loved it. He loved this show. He got it. I mean, he's a very mature kid. He's like really smart and mature, but still, he got it. Like he was super into it.
That's cool.
That's very cool. Yeah.
Because I know Star Wars fans that didn't like the show because this really isn't. It doesn't feel like a Star Wars show. Like we said earlier, no lightsabers, no Jedi. There's nothing like that. It's just set in the universe.
And that's the thing. I can't even imagine getting in that mindset because I'm definitely one of those people who's like feels like Star Wars outside of like The Mandalorian, like and Rogue One. I feel like Star Wars hasn't been good for like 20 years. You know, and a couple of other things. You know, Clone Wars is a good kids show. You know,
Bad Batch kids show anymore.
Bad Batch. I mean, but you know, still Clone Wars. I mean, I would still call it a kids show. It gets a little dark, but the one I'm forgetting. It's
Rebels.
Even Rebels, yeah, Rebels, Bad Batch, those are good. But I mean, the movies have been mediocre at best for 2 decades, with the exception of Rogue One, right? The TV shows, Mandalorian's great, but the other ones have been, again, I would say Obi-Wan's got a good hour and a half in there, but otherwise it's not great either. And then Book of Boba Fett, I don't know if it has a good hour and a half. You know,
Yeah.
maybe it does, but still, this is like such a breath of fresh air to the series, and
Yeah,
I don't
it really
know.
was.
I can't see being upset that it's lacking in Star Wars. That's the best thing about it,
And
is that
the
it's
show
not traditional Star Wars.
does an extremely good job, I feel, of showing you kind of how the rebellion, or not even kind, I shouldn't say kind of, shows you how the rebellion gets started. It shows you a guy who's in the background who we never see, because I'm assuming his ass gets killed before we get to Rogue One. I'm assuming.
Are you talking about Luthen?
Luthen, he has to be dead by the time.
I expect him to die at the end of season 2. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way. But it also makes sense. I mean, this is a character who you find out he's a rich guy, essentially. I mean, he has money, and he's, started shit with the Empire because he didn't like what they were doing, and it's gone too far, in a sense. And he knows that he can't stop. And at the same time, he also realizes he'll never be recognized.
But what he's doing is really important, too. Like, and that is like a parallel with Andor in Rogue One, right? That at the end, he's fighting for a world that he's not going to get to live in, right? Which is what Luthen says in this show.
Yeah.
All the characters in Rogue One are fighting for a world that they're not going to get to see. They're sacrificing themselves for the next generation, right?
Yeah, because they all know they're not. I mean, even in this, the only character in this that makes it through the Star Wars movies that you see again is Mon Mothma. Everyone else, none of them are coming out of this alive.
Yeah. And she gets killed by a bioweapon in one of the worst Star Wars books I've ever read. So, but I don't think that counts anymore.
It's no longer canon.
No, I know it doesn't. God, I hated that. Poisoned her.
That's a good job at introducing you to Andor, to getting you to kind of care. Like, it has a backstory to him that doesn't matter. Oh, he's Kenari, and you have that, but it really doesn't matter. Like
it doesn't, and I that's actually literally the only complaint I had about the show. Was I felt like that went nowhere and was kind of pointless.
Yeah. Showing
the idea of like primitive people living like, like Stone Age almost, who have no idea that they're living in it. That's neat, but it doesn't really mean anything. I mean, all we needed, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't really matter.
Come back to it.
It just, all that really mattered is we needed to know that he's an orphan that's adopted by, God, I don't even remember the name of Marva. Yeah, this is adopted by Marva. I was trying to think of the actress that plays Marva.
It was in Cowboy Bebop, the live action. I can tell you that. That's where I recognized her.
She's a British actress. Among other things, the Harry Potter movies as well, playing.
That's where I also recognized her from.
Yeah.
Wait, who does she play in the Harry Potter movies?
The adopted. What's her name?
She plays Aunt
Petunia. What's her name?
Something like that.
Oh, Aunt Petunia. Oh, okay. Oh,
the Dursleys,
Yeah.
The Dursley thing, that's one of those. Yeah.
Wow. That's sad that the one thing that popped in my head was Cowboy Bebop in the live action. She's in one episode with the Sea Rats, and of the few episodes I watched, and that's where I recognized her from. Didn't even think about Harry Potter, where she's probably known for.
Yeah. She's in Fleabag. I see. And Enola Holmes. Yeah, so she's in Killing Eve. Oh, she's in a lot of Killing Eve. Okay.
I should watch that one day.
That's cool. Yeah, I've heard that's really good. Well, that's cool.
He does a good job of setting all that up. I mean, and this show is really broken into art. I mean, we'll go more in depth, but I just give an overview. As I was thinking about it, you have introduction to Andor, you have getting ready for the heist, the Aldani heist, you have the prison and prison break, and then you just have the end of everything.
Yeah.
And I mean, this show is 12 episodes, and like watching it week by week was the right way to watch it. Today, I've been watching. God, I think I watched where he gets arrested or when he's in prison up until the final episode throughout the day.
And I think that's honestly like the best arc of the show is that the prison thing was amazing.
Yeah,
we'll get to it, I guess. Right. But oh man, well, did you want to go like episode by episode, or what do you want to do?
No, I just the characters and art.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, yeah, I agree, and I decided to take it back about saying I complained about that. Actually, come to think of it, I think we don't need to know anything more than we know about his childhood. I think it actually was pretty. It was a neat little bit of world building, and then it does what it needed. It did exactly what it needed to do. So
my only question was that the Empire, or was that the Republic when that happened?
It would have to be the Republic.
Okay.
For the time frame.
Okay, because I guess it also kind of shows the Republic wasn't as good as you think they are. Like his adopted father gets killed by clone troopers. It looks like.
Are they? Yeah, I think you're right.
Because they do even say for the Republic. I mean, it could have been after it was already, kind of not the Republic. But if I remember correctly, it becomes the Empire like immediately after he takes over. Yeah,
time frame wise, I mean, you figure the Empire starts about the time that Leia's born, right? Yeah, and in Rogue One, Leia's like 18 years old, right? I mean, Rogue One is taking place. Carrie Fisher was like 17 when they filmed A New Hope, right? I think. Yeah, and so if we're supposed to think that Leia and Luke are about 18 years old, which would make sense, right? Because Luke is thinking of going off to the academy and stuff, and Rogue One happens, at basically the same time as 5 minutes before A New Hope. Then Cassian looks like he's in his 30s. He looks like he's probably at least in his late 20s in Rogue One.
Yeah.
So for him to be a kid like that would. I mean, maybe it could have been just barely the Empire, yeah. But I think it is. I think that they do say something about the Republic, like you said, right?
But I did like that. I like that you see the Republic is not as good as you think they were.
Right. Yeah.
I thought that was cool because they're not the greatest. So, and I just like that being touched on because we don't normally get that touched on.
Shades of gray, like we said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. Like, because you see that his father, his stepfather was killed. Or adopted father, whatever word I should use, but you see that he was killed. Like, they do a good job in showing you why he hates organized government, even though this organized government is fucking awful in this Star Wars world.
Yeah, I mean, this one in particular, yeah. I mean, I think it makes sense for people to be against, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's not good.
Yeah.
It is not a good government at all.
Yeah, I think they do such a good job in this show, like, with making Coruscant look like dystopian, right? Because the prequels, Coruscant's like magical city planet. It looks like Rivendell from Lord of the Rings almost, only but with skyscrapers. And this one, it's like it looks like something out of 1984. Like,
I mean, you do have a scene with the Senate where like nobody's when Mon Mothma's trying to say, oh, we need to do this, and nobody's paying any attention to her.
Yeah, there's that.
They're kind of protesting her. Yeah, they're protesting by shutting off their lights or just
apparently that's like the way that they kind of signal that they're not paying, that they don't agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like boo! It is booing.
It's basically booing. Yeah.
I mean, it was cool also to have like to have that arc going back and forth because like, here you have that character, is kind of living a very sheltered life in a way, is very lucky. And then they like to play off, showing her with all the terrible things that are happening to Andor at the same time. Like they have lots of cuts of that throughout the show. And I thought that was a cool concept too, to kind of show you what, the shit he's going through. And then without, at the same time, that's all I took it. Especially with the prison break. You see a lot of it with the prison break where she's in this fancy-ass building. He's in a freaking prison cell.
Yeah. I thought they did a really good job of kind of setting up the idea that Mon Mothma is like, I mean, she just felt like such a real character. Like, I can just imagine, like, if our country, continues in a fascist direction long enough and we become, like it is in this show where they're the Empire, but they're still the Senate for now and all that. I could absolutely imagine like certain politicians in our government who would be like her, who would be trying to do the good thing, but they would still be so disconnected from the reality of the situation, you know, which I think is the thing is like she is on the right side of things. She's helping. She's risking her life and her livelihood and her reputation and all that. But she's also like, I think she's insulated from the realities of it. And like when the Aldani thing happens, she's like really upset. And Luthen's like, what did you think what did you think all this money was for? Like, what did you think we were doing? Like, like, did you think we were like going to have a protest? Or he doesn't say that. He says something along those lines, but he's like, what did you think this was all about? Like, this is, like he doesn't, I mean, I don't think she like quite realizes like, and she gets like real upset about being involved with that like criminal guy. And I don't think she realizes like she's associated with criminals already. Yeah. She's associated with people who are killing people and committing crime, and she's helping them. She's paying for it.
I don't think she realized what she was getting herself into.
Yeah.
I really do believe that.
I think she's just, a well-meaning politician who's decided to do the right thing, but she doesn't know what the right thing's going to entail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I love, because I think that's like, she feels like one of the most real characters in the show to me. Like, I could absolutely imagine that character being a real person.
Peter, do you have anything you want to add about that?
No.
Okay. I just want to make sure I gave you the floor before I continued on. I didn't want you to turn off your light.
That's fine. No, I'm good. I think I would love to go through the episodes and kind of talk about that.
Okay, we can.
I have nothing to say. I have nothing more to add about characters.
I'm trying to think. I'll pull it up, but like, when does because you have I think you have a couple episodes. Oh, one thing that you have a couple episodes of like Cassian being on planet before he ends up getting caught up with the whole Aldani thing. I think it's like the first 3 episodes.
Yeah. The third episode ends with Luthen getting him off Ferrix. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought was cool. I mean, I think it's interesting, like that you have an area also with the corporate security where it's not the Empire. They're having somebody else run security at a planet until they fuck up.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think that was, seeing the bureaucracy of the corporate sector and then, of course, the Imperials was, probably one of my favorite parts of the show. Just that there's like the Empire. I forget, there's some lore about the corporate security, but at least I don't know what that is exactly. But at least in the show, it's kind of portrayed as like, well, the Empire needs them to maintain. They like have some level of autonomy, but in the end, like they have to report to the Empire still. And yeah, they're not stormtroopers and stuff. They're just guys in weird jumpsuits.
Yeah.
Who, are very British. But it's such an interesting. It's like another level of the government that we haven't seen. A level of Star Wars, at least. In a standard Star Wars movie, there'd be stormtroopers and Imperial officers there, but it's like, okay, this is a subcontract. This is like, not quite a private security, but it's like these people that are also fascists that we, leave. The Empire has determined you can control your stuff for now until you mess things up, and then we're going to take charge there. So
yeah, exactly.
I was
looking at the names of stuff, and so like the planet that Cassian goes to where he kills the 2 officers is called Morlana 1, and then the security company is called Pre-More Security.
Okay.
Yeah. And it has that word more in it. So I think it is like, this is like the Morlana system. There's a corporation that controls everything in the Morlana system, and the Empire is giving them like limited autonomy until they have a disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just feels like extremely realistic, like the way it would actually be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of like, kind of private security or like, some oil companies who have like their own kind of basically a military force guarding them.
Yeah.
And like, they might be an American company, but the American military doesn't have anything to do with it. But yeah, it's like an outpost that can manage itself. And I think that's a very interesting way of showing the government.
Yeah. Until it turns out it can't. Yeah.
To see that in Star Wars for a change.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because we never gotten that. And then just seeing how resourceful Cassian is, because you really get to see that a lot in these first 3 episodes, where he's a very resourceful person. I mean, he's constantly trying to, and he's outsmarting them. Like, they bring, I think 12 guys or so, or 20 guys into this raid, and they get fucked up bad by Cassian and an old man.
And Luthen. Yeah, I mean, Luthen is a big part of that. Luthen's got, like, plans on plans on plans. He is, like, really good at this. So, Yeah, Cassian, in fact, almost really screws it up because he is just like so focused on we've got to get the Star Path unit, got to get the Star Path unit.
Well, money.
Yeah, because that's all that's like, he's living on like that raw edge, like just surviving by hustling, and that's like represents a lot of money to him.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah, well, it does. And I was gonna say, I know we're off characters. I just want to say Cyril, the security guy that is just like obsessed with him. Such a good character. Such a again, just like we have so many of these everything about him. All right, I'll get off that, but I just want to say him and his crunch berries and blue milk and his mom, his crazy ass mom. Oh my God. It's like, these are characters we've never seen anything like this in a Star Wars. Anything.
Right. And also uncomfortably similar to, people like that in the real world who would be.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm sure, in the real world, people like Cyril become fascist all the time. Like he's basically an alt-right incel.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, I don't even think that he's necessarily bad at first. I think he's like just a good cop who's upset.
Just trying to do his job.
Yeah. He's just trying. He's upset. Like that basically 2 of his fellow officers were killed and his superior officer doesn't care and doesn't want him to. And he's just like obsessed with law and order, and he goes kind of far with it. But I don't know that he's even a bad person in this, really. He's just like obsessed with catching a guy that murdered 2 police officers to his perspective.
Well, he's bad in the sense of the show and that he's working with the Empire, I guess. So I mean, the show's coded him.
Yeah,
I feel like he's coded as a villain.
See, and I think that if there's anyone on the Imperial side that is going to have a potential redemption in the second season, I feel like Cyril is the one. Because I feel like he is the one with actually good motives trying to do the right thing.
I can see that happening for sure.
Well, I don't know. He does become self-serving because he is like really obsessed with how his career was ruined.
Yeah.
But I still feel like it's really just this. He is, like Les Mis, the inspector, the guy he's just obsessed with catching Jean Valjean because to him, theft is theft. Doesn't matter that he stole bread because he was starving. Theft is theft. I'm a cop. He's a criminal. I've got to go after him. And I feel like it's like that. Only legitimately, Cassian killed 2 guys.
Yeah.
It's not like he stole a loaf of bread because he was starving. He killed 2, security officers who were probably bad. And that's, I think, the thing that Cyril's ignoring is that these are dirty cops that were killed.
Yeah.
But to him, it's like murder is murder. He killed 2 guys. I've got to. And then, he kills 2 more on Ferrex. He and Luthen killed. I think they say 2 people died. 2 more officers died, right? And
they do for sure.
Which I'll say, we were talking about Cassian. I was saying Cassian's good. He specifically spares one of those guys.
Oh yeah, he ties him up instead of shooting him when Luthen
doesn't let Luthen kill him.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is in keeping with what we saw him do like a couple of episodes before, but still. But anyway, I wanted to touch on that while we were on the. But we're going through so the first 3 episodes, really feels like one, like, I do feel like there's certain arcs, right, of the show. And that those first 3 episodes, that's the Ferrex. That's the introduction. We get Cassian, we get Luthen, we get Mon Mothma, we get Ferrex, we get Cyril. We've got that whole thing. And then it ends, and season 4, we go into the heist.
Yeah, because episode 4, 5, and 6 are all the heist.
Yeah, right.
There's the old Hitchcock object of the MacGuffin, and that's what the object that drives the character is the object that drives the character. Object the character desire. And then and it's the Star Path unit in the first couple episodes. Like they want the Star Path unit, they get the Star Path unit, and that's like causing all the problems. Right. And then it becomes, the Aldani heist. Like the MacGuffin is we have to get the gold. Or we get the payroll.
That is something I wanted to mention, by the way, because a friend of mine was watching this like a couple of weeks after me, and he would occasionally in our group chat be like, "Okay, so what the hell? Like the Empire's still using like gold coins? Like they isn't like you would think at this point. I mean, in our world, we're almost off of currency at this point. We're basically digital now. Like you would think the Empire, it would all be the credits would all be digital, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess you think in Star Wars, you see people have currency sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But usually it's like, well, you think like Mandalorian, he's taking bounties, he's getting like literal Beskar, right?
Here's my thought is that Palpatine was really into the gold standard, and he really was upset when the Republic got off the gold standard. And that was his main thing. When his second day of office, he was like, "We're getting back the gold standard because we got to have something that makes tangible."
Yeah.
And so they all went back to the gold standard after they had digital currency for 2,000 years or whatever. That's my.
But it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it is really funny, and I don't know if it's supposed to be gold, but it is like clearly like I don't know. It looks like bars, maybe.
Yeah,
it looks like gold bullion.
Yeah,
it does. Right, and so it's just like it's supposed to be some kind of metal, and it's just like I guess. I mean, like. You know, like the Ferengi have gold pressed latinum. I was going to say in Star Trek, there's no currency because it's like a socialist utopia. But no, the Ferengi have got their gold pressed latinum. So I guess it's fine. It's just, it was kind of funny though. I was just like,
from a screen, yeah, I agree with you. From a screenwriter's perspective, it's like, you know, doing a digital heist is not interesting in the least, and so
right.
You need to have something.
We got to get in and hack the mainframe and delete their bank accounts.
Right. No one cares about that. Plus, you know, Star Wars is always, because it was from the 70s when, you know, digital tapes were the future technology. It's always kind of a mix of, you know, spaceships and old antiquated stuff. And so that's because
it's always been one of my favorite things about Star Wars too, is how it's the future retro. I just started watching the Battlestar Galactica series, the one from the mid 2000s. And that's got that same thing going on, and they actually have an in-world explanation for it in that show. But I like that a lot. It makes it feel more real. And that was another thing I was going to say about the show is, you know, The Mandalorian, they use that light room, and it's really cool looking. And they basically they're like in a computer simulation at all times in that show, pretty much. And this, you can so much of it where you can see they went out in the world, they went out somewhere and filmed. Like the stuff on Aldhani, Aldhani is like, it looks like they're in like New Zealand or something. And I love that. It looks so much more real.
Yeah, it does. They use real locations, which I think is why it filmed a long time. It was filmed in the UK, and I believe Aldhani was in Scotland or something.
Okay, I can see that.
That's why. And the Neomos, the Miami type planet was filmed, you know, in the city called Blackpool, which is on the coast. And honestly, it doesn't look warm. It looks like a beach in England, which is, you know, a kind of cold beach.
Yeah. It looked very much like that, but that made it look more alien to me as an American. So I was like, this is like a cool alien planet.
It did not look warm. It did. I wondered if it was meant to, but having been to England and gone to the beach, it's not, even in the summertime, they're not anything like Miami or like, you know, California beaches.
I did get the impression that it was supposed to be, but yeah, it just, but that's fine. It looked so real. Like I was just, compare that scene, for instance, to like in Rogue One when they're like actually fighting on the beach. It looks very CG. I mean, it looks beautiful, but it looks very CG. And this, I know it's a minor thing, but everything in this felt so original Star Wars. Like that, there's gonk droids walking around at one point, and in the first episode, and that droid that his mom has, I really like that like fucked up little like broken droid that can't talk right. I love him.
I liked him too. I felt it was the only. There are very few cutesy things in the show. It was the only kind of cutesy conceit that, you know, kids would like. But I doubt, you know, very little kids would be too into this. But
it's not going to be like it's not going to be BB-8 though. It's not BB-8. It's not even R2-D2.
Yeah, it's not like Babu Frick showing up or something, you know.
Right.
Which would have been too much, or a Porg, you know. That's just a little too much. Porg. But it's
exactly.
It doesn't cross the line of cutesy. It is cutesy, but it doesn't go over the top. So
yeah. It was a little. It added a little bit of levity here and there. Yeah. I think it's on a similar, for me, it's on a similar level to Cyril eating his crunch berries and blue milk. Every single time we see him at his mom's house, he's eating just it really does look like the Captain Crunch, oops, all crunch berries.
It does.
Right.
And blue milk. And I don't know why, but it just made me laugh every time I saw him eating it.
It made sense. I saw it and I said, that's what he'd eat.
You know what? If you had to go, cop got fired, has to go live with his overbearing mom, he's eating his crunch berries.
Right, exactly.
Anyway, so they go to Aldhani, and it's awesome. I really like the Aldani heist thing. I did not know how many episodes there were going to be, and so I was like fully expecting episode 6, where to actually be the end of the series, and then it keeps going. I'm like, oh, this is wonderful.
That whole part was, it just kept going in different directions. Yeah, because I did not know it. The first 3 episodes are one thing, and then like we said, it goes to another thing. Keeps moving on to arc, and I think the Aldani arc is super interesting, just because the conceit is kind of Star Trek-y in that they have a natural phenomenon that the people are watching,
that they're going to use to.
That I don't think we've ever seen like that, like a native population witnessing a natural phenomenon in a Star Wars.
Oh yeah, you're right. That is very Star Trek. Yeah. That is something. Yeah, that's like something out of Next Generation, really.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was cool, and I like how
it was great. I loved it.
You also have a bunch of different characters in this. You have someone who used to be a stormtrooper. You have a kid who just is idealist, who wants to see freedom for people. You have a mercenary who just wants revenge and money. Like, I like the way it was.
Yeah, and Star Wars like quietly throwing in a lesbian couple. I'm always happy when I'm like, I hope that pissed somebody off.
And it was very they don't. I mean, it was very simple. Like, they just make a comment once, so they say her bed's already taken or something like that.
Yeah, and they show them hold each other a couple of times, and it's like, but it's great. Like, that's what we need in media, is just normal. It's just part of the characters. It's just it's just there, right?
Yeah,
it's normal.
Yeah, because this is a galaxy far, far away where their values are different than that would just be normal to their society.
Yeah. And I like that the people on Aldani are all like farmers, and you have like the Empire really being assholes and like be like, oh, screw these guys and all sorts of stuff like that. I thought that was all interesting.
It felt very realistic, and I liked the whole like concept of like, we don't have to like oppress them or beat them down or anything. We just put bars and entertainment all along their pilgrimage, and less and less of them make it all the way through every year. They just get tired of their own traditions. We give them new traditions. Right. And it's such a smart and realistic way. And I have like a really weird parallel with my life. I don't know. I can't remember. Like, Mike, you live up in the northern tundra, right? Yes. And Peter, I don't remember where you're from.
Milwaukee.
Okay, so y'all are both up from, and I'm from Texas, right? And I went to Texas A&M. And A&M, we have this tradition going. We have lots of traditions because A&M's a bunch of crazy. It's a cult, but A&M's an absolute cult. But anyway, we have these traditions dating back 100 years in some cases. And one of them that's like over 100, well, it started like the 19-teens, is building this bonfire on campus. And when I say building a bonfire, you're probably picturing, 8 feet tall or 12 feet tall. It was eventually like 4 stories tall.
Yeah.
These massive, and it's built entirely by students with no supervision, lots of alcohol consumption going on, and construction equipment. But really, it's mostly manpower of, getting like 20 people to pick up a log the size of a telephone pole and get it, onto the stack. And you're basically stacking telephone pole size logs on top of each other, right? And then setting it on fire ahead of the big game against UT every year. And we put an outhouse on the top, painted with UT's burnt orange and white, and it says TU. It says TU instead of UT, because A&M calls UT TU because we think it'll make them mad. It's so dumb. Everything about it. Well, my junior year of high school, so 2 years before I started A&M, it collapsed. It killed 13 students.
Oh.
It happened like 300. They built Bonfire. It was like Bonfire was done like 500 yards from my dorm. So when I moved into my dorm, a bunch of the older students in my dorm, they had been first responders. My friend's sister, she was, she had like first aid training because she was a lifeguard. So she was out there like helping pull bodies out. And it was horrific. It's like a big scar on our university, right? And so they canceled Bonfire the next year and the next year. But, by my freshman year or sophomore year, especially, the students and the alumni were really wanting to do Bonfire again. And the university, for obvious reasons, did not want us doing Bonfire anymore because 13 freaking students died in the last one. And so they banned it from campus. They just they stealth banned it at first. Like, we're going to talk about it. And then they eventually said, no, we're not doing Bonfire ever again. It's done. And so students and alumni started one off campus, like a rancher donated his land for it, and they started doing it off campus. And so what our university did was bring in like big name country music stars, like that, like Wave on Wave guy or whatever. I can't remember what his name is, but bring in these like famous musicians and have a big free concert on campus on the night of the off-campus bonfire. And the older students and the alumni still go to the bonfire, but more and more every year. And now it's like the off-campus bonfire is barely a thing.
Interesting.
The students go to, and I know it's like it's a long story, but it just made me think of that with that. I was like, it's just like what they did with bonfire, is they got rid of bonfire by giving the people something to entertain them. And as generations go by, people forget. And, my son, by the time if he goes to A&M, they probably won't even know what bonfire is anymore. But it used to be, it was like a really big part of this stuff there, traditions, all the like yells and cheers and all that kind of stuff that they do at games. A lot of them are based on it. And so it's really an interesting. I'm sorry, that was a long story.
No, I get the parallel. Yeah, it does seem. It seems very similar.
Yeah, it's a very real. But that's what. So it felt so real to me. I was like, and of course the difference is, I honestly completely agree with the university. Like, right. I think bonfire was a dumb tradition, and I think it's 13 students died. Yeah, let's stop doing the crazy 3-story tall bonfire.
So what you're saying is you didn't go to the Empire School. Okay.
Right. Well, but my point is so it's the difference is here is the Empire's the bad guys, but it felt like a very realistic.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Right. It's like they're soft banning the eye in a sense. They're saying they're not banning celebration, but they're trying to make it as less as possible. And clearly that shows. Also, they
can build an airfield at the place that the people like to do it.
Right.
At the end, which is just like it's so
imperial.
It's
so imperial, yeah.
It's like the planet's so big. Surely you can build another place, but the Empire
like,
doesn't.
No, this valley is like a really nice spot. We like it.
Right.
It's like that's so perfect. That's so like you say, it's so perfectly imperial.
Yeah, and it shows this show is doing a good job of showing the Imperials as much as much as I hate to say it, human beings. They're not cackling, rubbing their hands, thinking how evil. They're running the Empire like empires get run, like the British empires. Right. Like this is all talking like, oh no, we've got a problem. Well, your sector is in charge of that. Why aren't you dealing with the rebels? And the commander of the Aldani base is like kind of like putting on his clothes and getting ready for the big dinner or whatever. And he's saying, ugh, these natives. Well, got to throw them a bone every now and again, I guess.
Yeah, it really did feel very British, actually.
Yeah, not just because they're British, I guess.
Well, right. But I mean, it does actually feel like the British Empire, like in India.
Right. Like, yeah. India's a good example. Every kind of country that Britain ran, where like they're in charge, but they're the Imperials are definitely a minority on this planet. So they're kind of like we don't have the ability to just stop everything at once. We have to do these, soft power moves and
I love when that commander met the leader of the Pilgrims.
Oh, yes.
And the guy was translating for him. And he said something nasty to him, and the guy translates differently. And he looks at him, and he realizes that he's not actually translating it correctly.
Right.
I loved it.
Yeah. It's a little character moment, and it nobody remarks upon it, but it's it was a great little scene. Yeah.
And I do like that you had an Imperial commander, essentially turning rebel because of what the Empire did against him, by assuming killing the woman he loved. So he decided to say, fuck you, and turned against them.
Right.
It's a cool thing to see. And, how much trouble he caused.
It made more sense. The double agent here made more sense than the one in Obi-Wan, who was there was the woman, who I forget her name, who was just kind of like, oh, I don't agree with the Empire, now I'm going to help you out. And it just seemed kind of like abrupt, whereas this, we get a sense of why he was doing what he was doing.
Yeah. Well, the woman in Obi-Wan, she had already been working in the underground helping hide Jedi. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Right.
Still, every character in this, every minor character in this has more background and character building than any character that's been in any other Star Wars thing.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Yeah.
Like, it's just this, they did such a good job of making every single, I say every single, I was actually going to say the two, I mentioned the lesbian couple, I can't remember the darker skinned one's name, but she, I felt like, I think that,
Cinta?
Maybe. I felt like she was a real closed book. We didn't really get to learn much about her. Yeah, Cinta. You're right, Cinta. Vel, I felt like you really got to know.
Oh yeah, there's a scene right after Aldani with Val, like when you first realize who she is and she's all dressed up and she's Mon Mothma's cousin. That threw me for a loop.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, that was like a really good reveal, which turns out to be Mon Mothma's cousin. Yeah, I forgot all about that.
Right.
And I like the idea of you had somebody rich who, had money and had power in a way, and then, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I'm going to go,
become
start a war with the Empire.
Yeah, I love it.
It has happened before in history.
Yeah.
Because those are kind of the people who, can actually act upon their convictions. Like if you're rich, I'm trying to think of examples, but maybe it was Che Guevara. Maybe he was, I may think of the wrong thing, but he might have been, I think he was privileged. Maybe it was Carlos the Jackal, just things like that. Privileged people who were, became like a terrorist / revolutionary just because they had the ability to act on their belief, as opposed to, if you're poor, you can't just go out and fight in Cuba or whatever. So
right.
You also can't miss work.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I really like that. I really liked the Aldani heist arc, but then I felt like after that is when the show really takes off and gets elevated to a higher level of television. I felt like
not when you watch it all in one day.
No, really, because I feel like when he goes back to Ferrex to get his mom, and she's like, she's like talking to him. She's like the day after, the day we found out about Aldani, I put on my best dress and I walked in front of the Imperial headquarters. Like I strode across the square with my head held high for the first time since my husband was killed. And it's like, I thought that was really, really good. And he's seeing still, like for him, he got involved in this Aldani heist. Again, it was about money and survival. Yeah. And he sees that his mom cares about something bigger than that. And it gives him an inkling for a second. And then he goes to Beach Planet and gets arrested. And that is where we see the K unit that's not played by Alan Tudyk either, different voice actor.
I do want to talk a little bit more about the heist. One thing about the heist that I also really like is that pretty much everybody in the heist died.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And that was part of the plan.
Yeah.
Because, they even make a comment there like, you can kind of tell they didn't plan to have any of these people come back with them because they didn't want loose ends. They knew going into this, either you die or we're killing you by the end of this because we can't have loose ends.
I don't think that's... No, why do you think that?
Just because I feel like that was going to happen. Lucen, yes, he only had 2 people that were connected, but, they really hunt down Andor at the end, in the end to kill him.
But he's an unknown variable that joined for money, and he runs off. I don't think that the heist crew was all going to be killed at the end. I don't think there's any indication of that.
Okay, maybe I'm just
really, like Vel is like super upset when the kid dies.
Yeah, okay.
They take him to like an underground, 4-armed doctor to try to save him. So I feel like that. Okay. Nimic. I feel like maybe I don't feel like they thought any. I thought they went into it knowing they could die, but I don't think they were planning on killing anyone except. I think Luthen planned to kill Andor possibly. And when Andor runs off like that, then it's like, all right, we got to kill him because he ran off. Like, okay. I think they need everyone they can get. So I don't think they were going to kill.
That's just kind of how I took it.
Yeah, maybe, but that isn't how I took it. It was just that it went sideways, and then Skeen.
It goes sideways, all right.
Yeah, now Skeen, on the other hand, he was planning on killing everyone and taking the money,
which makes sense
because he's a bad guy. He's like an actual legit bad guy.
Hey, I wonder if he's wanted in 15 star systems or whatever the quote is.
But he even I loved his prison tats.
Me too.
Yeah.
And Cassian recognizes the prison tats and he can tell that he recognizes them. He's like, oh, you know what these mean, don't you? That's what I thought. And he's like, where were you in? And he's like, I was in juvie, basically. But yeah, I thought that was really so well done.
Yeah. And then, Nemec, I want to talk about a little bit, but the whole fact that this guy has a manifesto about how the government. I love it. That was really well done, I thought. Oh,
and the reveal of it at the end of the series is it's so good, and the way they do it, it's really good.
I really liked it. I really liked how much it meant to him. And I think that's one reason they don't like Andor is because they figure out, he's mercenary and they're like, well, he's not here for the cause. Like, you need people.
Yeah.
Guys.
Which it turns out that's Skeen's still. But yeah, Nimmick is like the true believer. He reminds me of, but differently, but a little bit, Mouse in The Matrix.
Oh, yeah.
Looked very similar, and I felt like he filled a similar role, too.
He's very kind of nervous talker.
Yeah.
Which is like Mouse. If that's the guy you talk about, Tasty Weed or whatever.
Yeah, talks about, Tasty Weed. But he's like, Mouse is like the purest character on there, in that show.
Yeah.
He's like the pure, innocent. He's not innocent because he's like talking about like, oh, I can get you some time with the woman in the red dress. But he's innocent in a different way than the other characters are. And so I feel like when you watch The Matrix, as soon as you meet Mouse, you're like, all right, so he's gonna die.
Right. Yeah.
He's gonna have to die, and it's gonna make everyone feel bad when he dies, and that's gonna be really, And I felt like that's with Nimmick. I was like, oh, cool. So he's gonna. I was watching it with my son, and I was like, well, he's gonna die. And my son's like, why? I'm like, because he's like, I like Nimmick. I'm like, yeah, that's why he's going to die, because it'll make it dramatic when he dies. Because he's an idealist. He's got a manifesto, so he's going to die. And so I was like, well, I hope not. And I'm like, well, watch, he'll die.
Here's this character you like. Here, watch what's going to happen.
Your father has studied plot and how to make a dramatic drama in it.
Yeah, and then when he got crushed, I was like, no! It was pretty. It was
told
pretty
you.
Yeah, I was like, told you. No, that's exactly what I said. I told you.
Hey, look, the character you like. I was right.
Oh,
that's fun.
Brutal parenting. Yeah. But no, I like that. I like his manifesto. It was very, and it is actually it's interesting because it makes me think of, I'm an American history teacher, and like the American Revolution. You've got people like George Washington, who is very much. He's in this revolution for mostly monetary reasons. He's been illegally selling land west of the Appalachian Mountains for years under an assumed name. He owes like a massive amount of debt to the Bank of England. Like, he's involved in the American Revolution, for his own personal gain, in my opinion. And then you got someone like Thomas Paine, who is this idealist philosopher who writes common sense and convinces people to get behind the war, and writes these like very idealistic stuff about freedom and democracy and all that kind of stuff. And I think I think that something you see in revolutions is you're going to have the people who are in it for their own self-interest, and you're going to have the people like Francis Marion, the swamp fox, who's like just like murdering people left and right, like murking people, like assassinating British officers and stuff. And then you're going to have people like Thomas Paine, the idealist. And I feel like it's another part of the show where it just felt very real.
Well, yeah. Well, wasn't that what Rebel Alliance means? It's an alliance of the rebel groups. Like, it's not just one. Yeah.
That was the cool
life.
thing. Yeah. And that was the cool thing that Rogue One introduced.
Yeah.
Was the idea of, we've got our rebellion over here, and then Saw Gerrera, he's a little too extreme for us, right? He's over here at his thing. And in this, we see that there's multiple different factions. There's the one that Luthen and Saw Gerrera basically allow to die in order to cover their tracks. And I guess I'm getting ahead of myself, but when Luthen meets with Saw Gerrera, that was like a really cool scene.
Yeah, both of them are. But especially the final scene when they meet and he pulls a gun on him.
Oh, yeah.
That was cool. And you start seeing Saw kind of losing it too, more and more, because you see Saw in Jedi Fallen Order, you see Saw in Rogue One, obviously, and you see Saw in Rebel.
I was gonna say, he shows up in Rebels, right?
And Clone Wars.
Yeah. Oh, he's in Clone Wars too. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Clone Wars is his start before and then he loses his sister, and that's what leads him to. And you see him in Rebels, which is around this time, so he's kind of like this, but not as crazy as what he is in
Rogue One, where he's
and I don't remember how
mind sucking like aliens on people and stuff. Yeah,
that are there to help him. Yeah,
yeah. Well, yeah.
There's no portcullis in this show.
Yeah, yeah, man. He was the. I talked about this when we talked about Rogue One. Did we do a podcast?
We haven't done Rogue One yet.
We just have talked about it behind, and other stuff. But
we will be at some point.
I felt like that was, there's so much stuff that got left on the cutting room floor of that movie. And that's what I wanted more of in Rogue One, is I wanted another 20 minutes of Saw Gerrera. I wanted, and this gave us a little bit more Saw Gerrera. We got to see him before he's missing his feet and has his like messed up breathing thing, but he still sounds all gravelly. I was wondering if he was gonna like sound normal or not, but
yeah.
But it was cool to see how Luthen is involved with so much stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and one last thing about the heist that I do want to say is I think it's just really cool how they did it. I really liked it. I honestly thought the show could have ended after the heist because that was enough for a season one.
Exactly.
Could have ended there. And then
I thought so too.
There was a scene after the heist that didn't click to my second watching. There's a woman who meets Val that I did not recognize at all. I'm like, who? And you only see her the one time, like in this outfit. And I'm like, who is this talking to Val? And they say, we got to kill Andor. We have a loose end. And it wasn't until this watching today when I realized, oh, it's the girl, the clerk in the antique store with Luthen.
Right.
I did not put two and two together because
okay.
She looked a lot different.
I recognize her, but yeah. she's wearing a hood, I think. She's wearing a different outfit than normal.
Apparently it worked on me.
Yeah.
I thought she was a brand new character. I'm like, oh, more people are involved in this. And I'm like, oh, no, it's the same character.
Yeah, but she's like upset with Val for trying to contact Luthen. She's like, he'll contact you if he needs to contact you. Like right now, you need to worry about this. You need to do this. It is also, I think it's in the first of the heist episodes that we get introduced to one of my favorite characters in the show, Deidre Miro, the ISB.
Oh, it might
agent,
be, yeah.
It is. It's in the end of episode 4. Yeah, the ISB agent who looks like she's always smelling a fart. She's just angry at all times. She's angry, but I really liked her character. I thought her character was really well done. She is not getting a redemption arc. There's no way.
No, she is.
No, she is full on fascist, but she is like competent fascist. She's a competent fascist surrounded by incompetent fascists, and she's pissed off about it. She's like, I need to be better at fascism. And she is so crazy because she's like a villain who I'm like rooting for. I'm like, yeah, you tell him. You get a charge. And then she starts torturing people. I'm like, all right, maybe not.
And the ISB hasn't been involved before, correct? Like this is the first time I think we ever see him in Star Wars.
They've been part of. Director Krennic in Rogue One was ISB.
Oh, okay.
So they've been mentioned. I just don't. I caught.
I think they've been around since, if I'm not mistaken, they were introduced in like the 80s in like a role playing game or something. So they've been around a long time.
Oh, yeah,
that's cool. I like.
The thing was that the white uniforms, like they made anybody with a white uniform was ISB, and that was like part of the lore of Star Wars. So if you go back to the original Star Wars movie, you'll see people in white uniforms, and they are considered they were considered by like the exterior sources to be ISB officers. So
okay,
that's
they're
cool.
kind of like
they're
the SF, right?
Yeah,
I would say,
or I'd say they're like the KGB or the CIA. They're the intelligence.
Yeah, because the SS weren't exactly hidden. So
no.
You knew when they were coming.
Right. The SS was a whole, like, it was all over the place because it was started off as a paramilitary organization before the war. Before the Nazis took over.
Yeah, but he made it his own thing and used it to gain more power. And
yeah, but I'd say Gestapo. If you're going with Nazi Germany, they're the Gestapo.
Okay, yeah, that's but KGB is
secret police. But yeah, I think the parallel here is CIA or KGB. Two sides of the same coin, really.
Yeah.
I felt like it was, it felt very real that it's this organization that's supposed to be, monitoring stuff, but bureaucracy keeps getting in the way of things in a way that I feel like that's exactly what happens. Mm-hmm. Bureaucracy does get in the way of even these like things. And then, she is like, and that's her parallel with Cyril is like two people who are good at their job and are like loyal to their job and are frustrated by the like stupidity of the bureaucracy, the incompetent bureaucracy they're surrounded by. The difference is he is like a rent-a-cop who wants to be more, and she's like a super competent intelligence agent, and he's like obsessive her in a very weird kind of creepy way. Yeah. And she's like does not understand what's going on, what his deal is, but still, I like that. And by the way, you mentioned that Krennic is ISB, and remember he had the Death Troopers, and there is a scene in this where she's got some Death Troopers with her.
Oh, okay.
It's like 5 seconds, and like I want to say the very last episode of the season.
Oh, okay.
I believe
when she's on Ferrex and she's like walking I think it's when she's walking toward right before the riot breaks out, and she's walking down there. She's got like 4 Death Troopers walking behind her.
Okay, I got to the episode and I was near the riot when I ran out of time and had to start recording. So
yeah, and Death Troopers is what they call them in Rogue One, right? The black like special forces stormtroopers that Krennic uses.
Pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the name.
Okay,
I didn't know.
cool.
I get them mixed up because the in Mandalorian, the ones that John
Those
Carlo,
are Dark Troopers.
Dark Troopers, yeah. So they're not dark. Yeah, they're.
Yeah, because the Dark Troopers are the robots that are from.
Dark Troopers are robots. They look like they're made out of Beskar. Look like they're made out of Beskar. They should have been made out of Beskar, and they're not made out of Beskar, and that was disappointing. But anyway.
Okay, another thing I do want to mention.
Yeah, sorry.
After the heist is the impact of the heist in the Star Wars world now. Like now know this is the event that leads to essentially the Rebel Alliance happening because Palpatine. I mean, if you read comics and all the other Star Wars stuff that I have that is Disney canon, like he was already doing shit he shouldn't have been doing. Like he was, but it wasn't. This is when they really like start putting down too many laws and become too aggressive to people too fast.
Yeah, and that's in the manifesto. That's in what's his name's manifesto, Nemec's manifesto, is that, dictatorships or oppressive regimes are like constantly afraid that they're going to lose their power because they know that they're wrong. And so anytime you hit them, they're going to clamp down, but every time they clamp down, they just become weaker. They weaken themselves.
And I think I thought that was their whole plan in this case, was to get to the point where they get the Empire to screw up, which they do.
Get them to screw up to the point that like an alliance will actually form. Yeah.
I mean, like they need the money, but it wasn't really about the money. It was about fucking them over.
Yeah, that's really what it was about. And it was about blood, or not even. I mean, because really, ultimately, this was probably like a decimal point on the Imperial budget, right? It's such a tiny. It's like one plan. It's like a payroll for one system in a galaxy-spanning empire. But it's one of those things of like, this will bloody their nose and make them jump, and they'll jump so hard that it'll make people more willing to fight back. And so it's almost like it is a very dark thing to do when you think about it. Like the Luthen's cell is basically trying to cause the Empire to become more oppressive.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, which is at first blush like, oh, they're going to steal their gold coins, whatever. But it's like, no, you realize that once it happens, that's what this is really about.
I mean, I just can't. There are many parallels in real life. I'm thinking of the civil rights movement where, people going into restaurants, going into restaurants where blacks weren't allowed. They knew that it would be a response would be disproportionate. Like they would have the police called on them and they'd be pulled out. But they knew also that the TV cameras would pick up on that.
Right.
And so the point was to get an overreaction from, quote, the bad side. And so the rest of the world would say, oh, Jesus, what's going on with there?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's definitely the plan. Like the more repressive they get, the more people will turn against the Empire. If not right away, then eventually they will.
And you look at our history, and so many dictatorships are ended by that because the dictator gets a little too happy and starts killing too many people, and then it gets broadcast. I know there's some in Africa. I can't think off the top of my head which dictators, but I watched the whole thing about dictators and what they did that fucked them all up. Because almost all of them get murdered by their people eventually. I think Gaddafi might have survived and died, but I can't remember if he got murdered or not by his people.
No, Gaddafi, he got killed in a horrific manner, yeah.
Okay, yeah, they almost all of them just get, they all get murdered by their own people eventually. You can only do it for so long before, they're going to kill you.
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember with him. I think there's
or you get thrown down an elevator shaft by your apprentice.
Yes, Star Wars world.
Yeah. Star Wars.
But I also like how they mention Palpatine's name in this a couple times. They're like, take it up with Palpatine. Like, really? Yeah. When they say that to Anakin when they arrest him for nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. After the heist, and he's on the shore planet. You get shore troopers, and I don't know what it was, but there's something about me seeing different stormtroopers that just makes me smile.
Oh, I have a fun. I love it.
The flame trooper from book Mandalorian, just because, and I'm like, I saw this, I'm like, God damn it, you guys did it again.
The beach troopers was great. It would have been great if they had short armor, little shorts, so they could ride bicycles.
Oh man,
little hover bikes would have been great.
And this is I do like the fact that it kind of shows what they're doing, how they're like with the sentencing and everything, where he's like, oh, this used to be a 6-month sentence, but now 6 years for nothing.
When he gets arrested, by the way, I thought this was when K2SO and him were going to become friends. Because that K unit picks him up, the security unit picks him up by the throat. Because he tells him, hold him here. And so he picks him up and holds him. He holds him by the throat. Hang on to him. Oh, that's what he says, hang on to him. So he holds him by the throat and he's like choking. He's like, he didn't mean that. He meant just watch me. And so it's like, I was expecting this is when he and K2SO meet, and it wasn't. Yeah. But it was a fun little tease. Yeah. And then, how they have the kangaroo court trials where it's just like, next, 6 years.
Right.
6 years for loitering, basically.
And he keeps saying, I'm a tourist. I'm innocent. I'm a tourist.
Yeah. It's so Big Brother-ish, but again, it's just the Empire we're talking about here.
It just felt real. And then we get the prison arc, which to me felt longer, but it's only 3 episodes.
Right.
It gets a little boring. As I watched all of it today, it tires a little.
I did, man. I loved it. Andy Serkis. I could listen to Andy Serkis read the phone book.
Well, I mean, I enjoyed it when I saw it 3 weeks, separately. But when you watch all 3 of it in a row, it can get a little tiring.
No, I was like watching it with my son, and I was like, "Do you know who that is?" I paused it, and I was like, "He's like trying to guess," and I'm like, "It's Andy Serkis, precious."
I was so glad to see him in here. I did not expect him to show up.
I was delighted. He is such a good actor.
I couldn't believe. Yeah. I was like, "Is that Andy? That's Andy Serkis. What's he doing?
What's he doing in a Star Wars? Not playing some kind of monster, little alien or something."
He's just
I loved
a guy.
Yeah. Well, he's the first thing I saw him in as a not as a creature or whatever. He's in funny. He plays himself in Funny People for 10 seconds. But I was gonna say he's in 2 of the Marvel movies. He's in. Yep. He plays Claw in
Black Panther and Age of Ultron.
And Black Panther. But so I knew what he looked like, but still, it's neat to see this. I don't know. He's such a good actor. I loved it. I love everything in there. I love their little gel cells that they don't have to have bars on because the floor will kill you. And they got the food tube, and you can eat all you want. Just sit here and suck nutrition paste out of this tube.
But there's no flavor.
But you want to, they want us, fit. They want us to have plenty of energy for work. So just, suck on this food tube. And you see Andor, just sucking on it a couple of times.
Yeah.
And just everything just feels like, it's like, yeah, no, this is what a prison would be like. Yeah. This looks real. This feels real. Very much so. It honestly, I expected to be 2 to a bunk. So yeah. Or 2
the way they do it, this you just taking this random prison. Was it on the same planet or was it a different planet? I couldn't tell.
It's a prison planet basically.
Okay. And I thought it was interesting, they have the electric floors and that's how they're governing because, you're all barefoot. I thought it was good the way they do different things with that, how they really introduce you, to this prison and the fact that they're not holding it very well. They don't really they don't have enough guards. They rely on the floor system.
They feel like they don't need it because they've got that ingenious floor system, which it made me think of Face Off.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Where they've got the magnetic floor with the boots from the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, yes. It's also a water prison.
Oh, yeah. It's also, in the ocean. It's like the raft in Marvel, in the Marvel universe. Yeah. It's smart, or I guess it's like Rikers Island in real life. Never mind. or
Alcatraz.
Alcatraz. Yeah, I was like, okay, so no, I guess we do this in the real world too, don't we? But anyway.
Oh, boy.
We do, except you don't get there by spaceship.
Yeah. But it was, I was like, well, there's no way. I was certain with the escape plan is to get to a ship because it seems ridiculous that they're going to jump off of this thing into the ocean. And I'm like, but they did. But anyway, I liked the whole prison sequence a lot. I liked also, you could tell he was working on this for a while because you see him go in there and mess with that water pipe a couple of times.
Yeah.
Before the episode with that. But
they do a good job of showing you how long he's in prison too. He's there for months.
Right. But then when they find out that they killed all the people on the other floor and all that, he's been trying to convince, Andy Serkis to be on his side. He's been trying to get him on, to help him. And then he's like, tell me how many guards at any time, blah, blah, blah. And he won't say anything. And then after they find out what happened, this is all just we're never getting out of here. Yeah. We're here till we die. And he goes, never more than 12 at one time. You know, he says it like that. Like he knows, and he's in. Like with that one line, delivered so well too. At the end of episode, I think it's episode 9.
Yeah.
Kino, that's his name. Kino.
Yeah. He does a good job in this. I mean, it was funny. I thought I could have swore he was Snoke, but that movie never happened, so that makes sense. But I can't wait to.
Well, you missed the post-credit scene where he falls into a vat of acid and he comes out and he says, my name is Snoke now. That's not actually the post-credit.
I know, but I thought that was cool to see him and like the whole prison, like. You know, they find out all their sentences got extended, and then the whole reason what happened is that somebody ended their sentence and they put them right back in jail, but on a different floor. They didn't move to a different plant.
And that is, I feel like that's a little bit of a plot hole because no matter what prison that guy ended up at, he would have told the other prisoners, "Hey, I was supposed to be released, and they just put me back."
Yeah, but people might not believe him.
Yeah, but why would they? I mean, if they're not going to believe him in one prison, what would it make the difference? I don't know.
I felt like that recognize him.
Yes, but he's on a different floor. They put him on a different floor.
Yeah, maybe it's something you shouldn't look at too close.
I thought it was the same floor.
That was really...
On my rewatch, it realized it wasn't the same floor.
Yeah, it's not the same floor. So I was just kind of like, I got it. And it felt a little contrived because I was like, whether he ended up in this prison or a different prison, it was always going to be a problem to just put these people... and like restart their sentence like that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of it again. That's another interesting thing. Like with like parallels to real life. Like the Nazis, they started off. They told the people they were putting in concentration camps that it was a temporary measure, that they were being temporarily detained until they could be deported. That was like the thing. It was like these are relocations. I mean, basically, relocation centers is what the United States called our concentration camps that we put the Japanese in.
Yeah.
We call them relocation centers instead of, we call them internment camps now, but at the time we called them relocation centers. But still, like, that's what the Nazis told the Jews and others. They're like, yeah, you're being deported, and until we can deport you, you're going to be in this camp. But in reality, the camps were meant to be permanent. And that was like and they weren't originally meant to be death camps. They were just meant to be permanent slave labor camps.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I see them doing here, which I like.
But that's what they're doing here, right? They're like, oh, you're going to jail for 6 years for a crime that would normally have been 6 months. Now 6 years because the Empire's gone nuts because of the Aldani thing. But then it's like, well, actually, no, that's a lie. It's permanent because we're just doing slave labor. It's the same thing. And it's really it was so good. Everything about this, like I said, that one little thing maybe I don't know if that's how it would go down, but everything else about it was great. And so they get out of the prison, and then the show is 12 episodes, and it's like you've got your 3 episodes for the introductory arc,
3 for the heist,
3 for the heist, and then you've got 1 in between episode, and then you got 3 for the prison, and then you have 2 at the end. You have 2 episodes to end the show. And so that last 2 is a real good... Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I also wasn't expecting... I thought the show ended a few times when they first escaped from the prison and you see them swim off. I thought that was the end of the season. Again.
At that point, I had looked up and found out it was going to be 12 episodes. So I knew at that point it wasn't. I originally was like, well, Obi-Wan's 6 episodes. And the heist ends on the 6 episodes. So that makes sense. But yeah, no, I knew that wasn't... that. But again, it could be. You could totally have that be a season finale, and it would have been a satisfying season finale.
Yeah.
But those last 2 episodes, I felt like are very good.
They really are.
It's a real good cap off to the show. So do we want to move to those last 2 episodes then, I guess?
Yeah, let's go on.
Okay.
Okay, so we have, I'm sorry, I can't talk about bonfires. we have Marva's funeral, and I thought that was a neat idea, that the tradition on their planet is that you have your ashes turned into a brick.
That was cool.
To be put on like the wall. Because that's like, that is, and that's like, that's what I did with my dad. When my dad died, I had his ashes put.
Oh, really?
Not made into a brick, but it's like his ashes are in like basically a brick. It's a little brass box shaped like a brick, and it's in a wall in the Veterans Cemetery in Houston. But it's like, because someone said, well, that's dumb. They do it as like a brick. I was like, no, that's like a real thing people do.
Yeah.
Not make it into a literal clay brick.
but
still, the idea of taking your ashes and putting them in a wall is like a real world thing. And it was just one more, I don't know. It's so much more poignant than like putting them in like a little space sunglasses case and shooting them off at the ship, like in Star Trek or whatever.
Right.
It's like a proton torpedo.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just a coffin that they shoot out there, like. But if you're talking about with Spock, but
I am, yes.
but yeah, and then you have like you can see like the beginnings of the stuff going on the planet, and then we've got all this other stuff going on in the background with Saw Gerrera, and he ends up allowing at the last minute that guy to die at Krieger and his people to die at Spellhouse. Luthen like convinces him not to do it, and
I do like that
really tense meeting you're talking about.
And and also when you see the ISB, traitor essentially that's working with the rebels.
Yeah.
I like that too. And and again, he was only doing it for personal gain because Luthen makes a comment. He's like, you did this because it helped, get your career far. Like, we helped you too, and now you want out. Yeah. He's like, you ain't getting out.
No, there's no out. There's you're in or you're dead. Is how it goes. And it's like you can feel like that feels like so real. One thing that's a little, I think maybe the most Star Warsy moment is Luthen escaping from the Imperial Patrol with his just badass ship taking out takes out like 2 or 3 TIE fighters, destroys the tractor beam, and I was like, oh, that is exactly how you would destroy a tractor beam, though. That's so smart.
I really like how crazy his ship gets. I think that ship is in an animated or one of the animated shows or something.
Yeah,
the first. Yeah.
But it is a little, like I said, it is the more like traditionally Star Warsy. Just like it's maybe a little. It makes me think of like with Slave One having all the little bells and whistles.
Yeah, it's a little bit Mandalorian-ish.
Yes, yes. Oh yeah, yes. Very Mandalorian, very Mandalorian-ish. Where Mando's armor always has like an extra little gadget. It's it's a James Bond, very James Bond. Just it's very like. It's a little much, but it was fun. It was like a fun little action scene. My son definitely liked it.
Yeah, I don't have too many problems with it. I think
I didn't have any. Yeah,
it's good to intersperse. Yeah, it's good to intersperse. There's a lot of talking, and I feel like the episode doesn't have a lot of action until that scene. So there's a lot of tension, but not action. So it's good to have that interspersed in there.
Yeah, that's a big talking episode for sure. Yeah. This is Mon Mothma, having to reveal to Val that she's gonna basically sell her daughter to a mobster, and
to cover herself because she's money. They're like, she's 14. It's like, that's how old we were when we got married. That's they're so you realize their planet, Mon Mothma, was from a planet that is into child. Well, no, bride and groom. So I guess child as long marriage. As they're child marriage. I guess that's better than if only one of them was a child. But still, it's a little I guess what I was saying about the Luthen's ship and all that is it is fun. It was fun and it was fine. It doesn't fit the tone of the rest of the series as much, right? Because it's a little more unrealistic, I guess too.
But still, it was cool.
I like seeing a really cool ship in the late. Doesn't he do like a laser thing too, and like rip apart TIE fighters or something? Yeah. He has like a laser thing that cuts through like a TIE fighter, like and he has the thing of like like releasing a bunch of like sharp metal like things for the tractor when the tractor beam's pulling on you. The idea of just like, I mean, you would think the tractor beam's pulling on you, you just detach a bomb or whatever, and the tractor beam's going to suck that thing right up and blow up. And he has something else, but it was still similarly of like, oh yeah, that's exactly what you would do. Makes complete sense. I liked it. And then I liked on the prison planet, which I looked up as Narkina 5, how Cassian and that other prisoner, they get caught by the fishermen guys, and then the fishermen are like, I thought it was good because it was like they're like, well, I guess we could turn you in, but you know what, fuck the Empire, so that we're gonna let you go. It's like I like that. I thought it was neat because it showed again how the Empire being so dickish is gonna turn people against them. Because that's the thing, they're like, these people, like, this is their planet, and the Empire decided this would be a good place to put a prison. And we're going to put a prison here. It's like they don't get a choice in it. They don't have any choice in that. They tainted all the water because they're using the water for whatever the hell they're producing all these. Yeah, they're dumping chemicals into the water. So it's like the fishing's gone bad. And like, this is our planet. They're polluting our planet, building stuff on it, didn't ask our permission. So no, we're not going to help them, not even for a reward. I thought that was really cool. I liked it. Oh, yeah. They were kind of, some goofy aliens, but they were goofy. All right, that's Star Wars. Need some goofy, goofy aliens. That was fine. And there's a thing that I didn't catch So in the last 2 episodes, you have this is in the second part, but just to kind of mention it, what's on top of my head is you have a guy who betrays Andor and tells the Imperials where he is. I forgot by the time I got this episode until I did my rewatch. He's in the first episode asking Andor for his money back, and Andor ignores him.
Yeah,
I don't think he. Wait, was he? I thought. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's in the first episode with the big guy.
But does he betray them? Oh, yeah, he does.
He betrays Andor.
Goes in. Well, he goes in. He's like going to, right? Doesn't it? Like he doesn't like.
He tells them where he's at, hiding under that roof.
Oh, okay.
But then he moves before they get there because he knows.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. He's Andor owed him money and he didn't pay him, so he's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I mean,
but then you can tell he has
like, why is this guy just
second thoughts? He has like second thoughts about it. You can tell though, like near the end, but it's like too late, I guess.
Realizes how bad the Empire is because I mean, like this is when you see
they start firing into the crowd and stuff. Yeah.
Which again reminded me a lot of history because isn't that what, if I remember correctly, the British did that with the what the fuck is Boston Massacre? Is that it? They shoot in the crowd?
Yeah, I mean they did that with the Boston Massacre. That's shooting into the crowd of protesting people is a good way to start a revolution or a riot, at least in the very.
Yeah, I mean, in the Boston Massacre, they were like, it's like 6 guys surrounded by like 40 guys, and they're like throwing rocks at them and stuff and shouting threats at them. But it's still one of those situations of firing into the crowd of unarmed people. Yeah,
and that's what it reminded me of here when you get to that. But I think
that's what it was supposed to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, the show felt like it could have ending. Like when he gets out of prison, you have the episode right before this with the daughter, the one with Mon Mothma. Like it could have ended there, called One Way Out. I mean, you have the daughter of Ferris could have ended there when he calls and find out his mother died, and the show just keeps going. That's what surprised me too.
Yeah, but I thought episode 12 is a extremely satisfying. Where I was like at the end of it, I was like, well, I wonder if there's going to be a second season. I mean, I guess there doesn't really have to be, but there definitely could be. That was so good. It wrapped it up in a satisfying way where if they decided not to make a second season, you would still feel like you got the whole story. But you also have so many threads and seeds that you're like, oh, but we could definitely do a second season, and we could see what's up with Cyril and Deidre post-Ferrix and what's going on. How is Luthen going to die? Because we know he's got to die. Because in Rogue One, there's a different shady rebel pulling Andor strings.
What? I don't remember Rogue One at all.
It's one of the military commanders who is very very much has that like gung ho military officer guy. He's very much got a similar demeanor of well, anyway, and he pulls him aside when they go to allegedly rescue.
He tells him to kill him.
So he tells him to kill him.
Okay.
And Andor, you can tell, has misgivings, but nods and goes along with it. And that's that guy. I feel like if Luthen was supposed to survive the series, it would have been Luthen telling him to do that.
Oh, good point.
But anyway, I mean, maybe not. But I feel like it makes sense to have Luthen die in season 2. My point is I feel like the show has a good, satisfying conclusion, but leaves it open really well to a second season.
In the final episode, you have everything come together. You have all the people who are trying to kill Andor. You have the ISB. You have the stupid corporal guy, whatever the hell his name is, the cereal eater. You have him, Cyril.
And Deidre. Deidre comes to the planet in the episode before that. So Deidre's on Ferrix now. So we're bringing all these characters together.
Lucen is there looking, you have Val is there to kill Andor. You have everything happening.
Luthen's there to kill Andor also, apparently, because he wanted to make sure it happened. And you've got everybody that's still alive.
Yeah, I mean, and the riot thing is also I know there was a scene that they also changed because in the last episode they played this hologram of what Marva had wanted to say, and in the very end of it, she says something about we had to stand up against the Empire. It was supposed to be fuck the Empire, but Disney didn't want to do that.
Oh, really?
I've heard that. I've heard that too.
I can't imagine that would ever. Yeah.
I am skeptical of that too. However, there was a Reddit post several months ago before the series had aired where someone described the last scene, and someone said that story that they shoot. It could be that they filmed it that way with no intention of I don't think they ever would have put that in the show, but maybe they filmed it that way. Once did a take with the intention of dubbing it over or something.
Yeah, maybe. I can't. Yeah, I don't think there's any chance that was going to happen.
But
This is the first show that used the word shit, though. Somebody does say the word shit, and no one's ever said that in Star Wars.
Really? Oh. No,
Yeah.
they don't say poodoo. They say shit.
Right? Yeah, I think it was the second in command of Cyril, the Scottish guy, says it.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, the Scottish police officer guy. Oh my god, we didn't talk about him. Oh my lord. That was so. I was like, what are we watching? What is this?
But I mean, it's so good how the final stuff goes. Oh, and in the crowd, because I have issues with Star Wars, because I had this figure, there is one of the Bolton the spy with the big nose that turns him in A New Hope. There's one of that race in the background.
Yeah, that's not a Bothan, but
no, but I can't remember what they're called. But it made me smile because I had their toy. I had the figure.
Yeah, it was very briefly. You see it very briefly, but
it's just like how you see the Death Troopers for like less than 2 seconds.
They're actually a little bit longer. You see them in that one scene. You see them go into a building and stick their guns up somewhere, but they do show up for under 30 seconds. But they are a little bit.
But I really like the riot and all that, and Deidre gets caught out in it and gets like a head injury or something, and then Cyril comes and grabs her and rescues her. It's like the bodyguard.
Right. Thankfully, they do not kiss or anything, you know.
Yeah, she's still like, she's still very much like, what is with you? Why are you following me? Why are you fucking on this planet?
It also throws her off. Like, I love seeing how distraught she gets after almost dying because she wasn't expecting that because she's been so sheltered. Even though she's tortured people, she's had people murdered. But the fact that she comes close to it, all of a sudden becomes so much more real. And I'm like,
right, because she's an office person. She's a bureaucrat. She's a pencil pusher. Yeah. She's an important one and a smart one, but she's not ever had to be exposed to anything like this before. I loved it. Everything feels real. And her character is one of my favorite characters in this show. I think she does such a good job.
The kid throws a bomb into the crowd into the Imperials because they're the ones that killed his father because his father had the radio and they were just waiting. And
they were showing him building the bomb throughout the beginning of the episode. And I was like, oh no, that's what's going to happen. Like, oh, you can tell what's going to happen here. This is going to go. I loved it. I was like, oh, that's so right. That's so right.
It just turns out really good, and seeing them fight and seeing the Empire not really know what to do. In this either. I mean, because this is supposed to be the beginning of, the people standing up against the Empire, because they're going to hear about all these murders that just happen in this place. Even though it's far away, they're still going to hear about it.
Yeah, and they're gonna know that people stood up, that people protested. I mean, the video of her hologram is going to be played in other places, and Nemik's manifesto, is probably going to get out there eventually too. And so Cassian manages to rescue Bix and send her off with some characters that I am sure were in the show earlier, but they just seem to come out of nowhere. It's like they have names. I'm looking at someone named Brasso.
Yeah,
all right, cool. All right. But he sends him off. And then he goes to Luthen's ship and he basically tells Luthen, either take me in or kill me. And we can see Luthen's I sees the promise in him and decides to take him in. And then we get the post-credit scene that I think they should have just not had, that you said you didn't see.
No, I actually didn't see it. I'm going to look it up now, but feel free to talk about it.
Okay, so the post-credit scene is we see that when he was in prison, what they were building were pieces of the dish on the Death Star.
Oh.
So we see the Death Star being constructed, and it zooms in on that thing, that 3-armed thing that they were building. It's like they're putting those. They're an integral. They're part of the structure of the destruction disc on the Death Star.
Oh, okay, I see. I'm looking at it right now because it shows them that they're already building Death Star, which or it's already partly built.
We know it should already be partly built because it was already completed by Rogue One, and this feels like it's taken place a year or two before Rogue One.
5 years.
So 5. Is this 5 years before Rogue One?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
No, but they're already starting it at the end of Episode 3. So yeah, they definitely. Yeah, I forgot about that because I haven't watched Episode 3 since I saw it in the theater. So.
What were you going to say, Peter?
I agree that I didn't need the scene. I kind of never wanted to know what they were building. That would make it all the more dystopian, Orwellian. That they're just building something as part of the war machine. I get that the show, Rogue One's about the Death Star, and Andor is leading up to that, so they wanted to tie it in with Death Star. I just think that you don't need to explain everything, but Star Wars likes to explain everything. So
yeah,
guess what
I
they were
will say,
building?
there is a poetry that he's in prison building the thing that is going to kill him,
Right.
but that he's going to be instrumental in destroying also.
Right.
So there is a little bit of that to it, but yeah, it was just kind of, I was like, okay, I didn't need that. It was fine though. It was funny. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Someone else, I was listening to like a podcast, and they were saying, what would have been great is if like they showed the prison and there's another floor and they're disassembling those things to send them the parts to build more. And I was like, that would have been silly, but also really funny if it turns out that they're doing nothing. That it's just busy work. But yeah, the idea that they're building they're helping build the Death Star is like, I was just like, I was wondering the whole time they're in jail building those things. I was like, it feels like it must go on some sort of like droid, or maybe it's like part of a TIE fighter. But it doesn't look. Walker. Yeah, or I was like, maybe it's like it kind of looks like the feet on an AT-AT, only it's too small for that. But maybe it's the feet on an AT-ST. Or
I was wondering what the hell,
like,
but it makes sense. I mean, it kind of fits into that whole theme of the fact that this is why they're upping the prisoners and they need more slave labor, because they're building the gigantic Death Star.
Yeah,
because that thing is so that's no moon. So
yeah, that would be like an epic building project. That's true. So,
and you're building it in space, so
yeah,
not exactly like you can't breathe the air around it. So yeah, Peter, do you have anything you want to say about the last episode?
No, I'm good right now. I mean, I'm so glad. This is kind of spoiling over into the next bit, but I'm glad that it sets up a second season, or I'm glad there's going to be a second season, because while it does end on a satisfying note for this series, I like the series so much that I'm interested to see how they would continue it, and I hope they can keep the tone, and I hope they keep the same kind of writing style for season 2, because I am interested to see what happens to these characters, some of them at least.
Yeah.
I mean, I am too. I mean, I came into this with no expectations, and I'm the same with you. Like, it made me want more, and I'm looking forward to what we get.
Yeah.
And where this goes. All right, any last comments you want to say about the show before we go on to Shelf Stacker Bot?
No, I'm good.
Let's go on.
Okay, I'll go first. So I came, like I said before, I came to the show with no expectations. I didn't like Rogue One the couple times I watched it. This show, I liked it more when I watched it week by week than I did today when I watched too much of it. But I can't let that really, because that's not the show's fault. That's me trying to watch everything for a podcast and be caught up, just because I wanted that refresher. I like to do that. I'm going to put it on the stack because I really enjoyed it, but I don't think it's something that I could watch often, because it is so dark and depressing at times to me that I didn't like that. Like, when you watched it, like when you get to the prison stuff, everything is just so depressing. And it's not something that I'd want to watch. It's not a Star Wars thing that I'd want to watch over and over again. I could easily watch Mandalorian season 1 and 2 because they're just so Star Wars. But I still really enjoyed Andor. It's just a great, great show. I just have to put it on the stack. It's not something that I could continually enjoy. What about you, Peter?
I'm tempted to put on the shelf. I do think it's a little bit depressing.
Okay.
Might not be rewatchable, but I think it's very important. If you like Star Wars, you absolutely should watch it. It's a show about fascism and living in a society that's fascist. But in the Star Wars story, it's, you get to see the formation of Rebel Alliance. And I think that's so interesting, and I think it's so compelling that, yeah, I'm going to revisit it at some point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about you, Kerry?
Yeah, I'm the same as Peter. I say shelf. I don't know that I'm going to rewatch it anytime soon, because I don't really feel like I have time to rewatch a 12-hour, drama like that anytime soon. But it's like, when season 2 is coming, I'm probably going to rewatch it for season 2 and then watch Rogue One. I feel like it is, yeah, like Peter said, it's important. I think Rogue One is extremely underrated, and it, it has issues, but I think it's probably, in some ways, one of the best things that Star Wars has ever done. And I felt like this is better than that, but
okay.
But good for a lot of the same reasons.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, this did a really good job of showing us, how the Rebel Alliance comes. I think one last thing I want to go out on is, I know a lot of people had a problem. Like, there are a lot of people that complained about the show who love Star Wars because it wasn't what they like about Star Wars. I mean, for me, the reason I didn't put this on the shelf, because it's not as hopeful. I like more hopeful things.
Yeah.
And it's not hopeful. And that kind of, I still really, really enjoyed it, but I don't like my stuff to go out on a, I don't like that world at times. And people like Star Wars, they like the lightsabers, like all that, the Force, and this didn't have that. But I'm glad that we're getting something different.
Yeah, it's I do love those things. So you're wrong. I feel like Star Wars has gotten it's gotten a little samey. Like they're afraid to tell anything, do new stories and go in new directions with things. And I think Mandalorian and this more so are taking Star Wars in a different direction than and are not afraid to go off and really tell an interesting new story that's different than anything else we've ever seen in the series. And I think that's the best thing about Rogue One is that it's, even though it's a prequel and it has these stuff that ties it in, it still feels like it's telling a very different story than we've ever seen in Star Wars. And I feel like that's the same thing here.
Yeah.
And then also just the use of real sets, real locations, real, very minimal, CGI, I think is always the way to go. And that's this too. So
I hope we get more of that too.
Yeah.
All right. And Peter, where can people find you at?
You can find me. My book series is called The Fifth Civilization. That's the name of the first book as well. You can find it on Amazon under The Fifth Civilization. It's a fun, adventurous read. I would highly recommend it.
Definitely.
All right. And Kerry, where can people find you at?
Hey, so I am on Twitch at Karooseta, Kerooseta. Basically just turn on the streaming button anytime I'm playing on my PS5 pretty much. And then occasionally I also modify and repair video game consoles in my workshop and stream that. I just fixed a drifty Switch Pro controller on the stream last week. So,
All right. And if you want to hear more Star Wars, I'll read these fast. Star Wars Shadow of the Empire, Comic 41. Star Wars Return of the Jedi, Film 37. Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi, TV 5. Empire Strikes Back, Film 32. Star Wars The Last Command, Comic 37. Star Wars A New Hope, Film 29. Star Wars Dark Force Rising, Comic 36. Book of Boba Fett, TV 4. Star Wars Heir to the Empire, Comic 34. The Mandalorian, Season 1, TV 2. Star Wars Dark Empire 2, Comic 30. Star Wars Dark Empire, Comic 27. The Force Unleashed, Episode 115. The Mandalorian, Season 2, TV 1. Star Wars Bounty Hunter, Episode 87. Knights of the Old Republic, Episode 69. Star Wars Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, Comic 6. Star Wars Shadow of the Empire, Episode 48, cover the game. Star Wars Holiday Special, Film 6. And Star Wars Public Commando, Episode 21, and Star Wars Dark Forces, Episode 13. There's all the other Star Wars content that we've done. You can find all of it on Podbean. If you can't find me looking for it on iTunes or Spotify, they only go back 100 episodes, and I have well over 400, so you can find everything there. Want to give a shout out to my awesome intro and outro, courtesy of Helena at Hell Hat Spear. You can follow her on TikTok. Also want to give a shout out to my buddy Bill Tucker, did all the MCU movies with me. You can follow his podcast, The Gamer Looks at 40. If you want to support the show, we do have a Patreon for a little $1. You can vote in our Patreon each month. We have different polls. I don't know what it will be when this comes out, but definitely go check that out. And yeah, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we do have a Discord if you want to chat with us. And we are also on YouTube, but audio only. Thank you, and you have a wonderful day. Bye, everybody.
Bye.